Hey, good afternoon, Matt. It is Paul here. It is just about 4 o'clock. And you just dropped off your lovely XR here for me to have a quick look at. I'm going to just do a quick rundown of the things that I think disqualify from this bike from being with you any further than it needs to. And I do mean get rid of it. The, we talked about this earlier, but the single greatest obstacle that this bike has is that it was made in 1985. It's going to be increasingly difficult to find parts for it, and in my opinion, it just kind of needs everything. Now, I'm just going to quickly touch on. I did a compression test on this baby, and on the second quarter kick, so 12, 3, 6, 9, the kick is useless at 12. It just sort of starts to get into its prime at 3, and it's literally that bottom quarter. So the first quarter kick towards the bottom, this bike made 100 PSI in 2 kicks. I tried to do 3 or 4, and it just became a little bit more, trouble. But it well succeeded over 100 PSI. So although it doesn't look good, the base of this engine is making fantastic compression. And that's kind of where the good news ends. After that, everything else is just sort of a tax on whether or not you should put money into this bike. Now, you're probably noticing that I've removed the airbox from the carburetor, and that was in an attempt to get the carburetor to come in closer to the air boots, intake boots that you had replaced. And as you can clearly see, there's still a bit of a gap there. But if you look towards the bottom, just down there, you'll see that the carburetor is right up against where it's supposed to be. However, let me just find a quick pointer here. However, there is a dirt line right in there, and I'm sure you can see just on the tip corner of the screwdriver. That dirt line indicates that this carburetor is not all the way in the boot. And even when you look at the line on the boot, it's a little bit, towards this way on the top and towards that way on the bottom. It's just not seated. And I can't help thinking that either A, this is the wrong boot, because you can see that little notch in there that where it's sort of stopping the carburetor from getting all the way into the boot, or this is the wrong carburetor for the boots. So one of the two aren't matched. I pushed it as far as it'll go, but it just still doesn't really want to go. All right, so we're going to pan back out on that. And the next thing, and this is going to be tricky. Where's my flashlight? Hold on. Okay, found the flashlight. This little guy down here, this is your air fuel mix. Put this in the spotlight. This is your air fuel mix screw. And although it looks a little bit like a pathetic version of a 22, this little pointy guy has got parts missing. It's filthy as filthy can be, but it's got parts missing. There should be a flat washer and an O-ring on top of that. They're both absent. This little jet of a jet goes inside the air fuel mix screw hole. And I'm going to zoom in here as best as I can and then put the light on it so you can see what I'm talking about. I know you said that you went through this carb, but when you look at the amount of dirt that's still inside here, it's like, bro, how did you go through this carb? Because this is absolutely filthy. Can't quite focus. Focus. Come on, man. Get in there. Okay. Can't quite focus, but I think you can kind of see that there's a trail of shit that goes inside that jet hole. That obviously means that if you were mixing air and fuel in that jet hole, you were literally sucking it from wherever it was into the combustion chamber, which actually leads me to the spark plug. When I pulled the spark plug to do a compression test, it looked just like the one you showed me in the photo, and you said that you had replaced it, which means that there's probably a ton of carbon buildup on top of this piston, and it's just sticking to the spark plug because it's the coldest thing in the combustion chamber when the bike is running. And as a result, it ended up looking just like the one you had in the photo. So this carburetor needs to be gone through again. And when I say this, I do mean both. Now let's go to the other side. Just real quick here. You're probably noticing here that I've disconnected your rear brake, and I've done this so that you don't accidentally put your foot on it and try to use it, because this will lock up and send you ass over tea kettle. The lining has probably come right off on this brake lever. It should spring back, and it just doesn't. This is, I can't tell you what a hazard. Think of a door wedge being stuck in the door so hard that you have to remove the door to get the wedge out from underneath the door. That's exactly what the brake liner will do inside this brake drum if it is activated in the wrong way. So until you get this looked at, do not ride this bike and do not activate this rear brake. So it's just a wing nut. You know how to put this back together, but it's disconnected for your own safety and my conscience. All right, moving right along. Just gonna put this bike up a little bit. All right, moving right along here. We have a significant crack in the frame. So this kind of does it for me with reference to getting this bike to go again. Yeah, you could just drop a spot weld on there and probably just keep on riding. But, this is not the only place that this bike has got fatigue in the frame. And if this is an offering to, what more you can expect from this bike, this is a definite sign of leave me alone or sell me to somebody else. In addition, you already know about the decompressor cable and you already know about the dirty carburetor. But back to the carburetor, which is where we left off on the other side, this one here. You can see this carburetor, based on where the boot is, this one's perfectly snugged in there. You can see the little dirt line towards the top of the frame. That's okay. This carburetor is all the way in the boot, just as it should be. But as we move towards the back of the carb, you can clearly see that the air boot or the intake boot is clearly off. When we pan back here and we have a look just basically at the relationship of the sort of traffic jam that should be, rubbers all sort of telescoped or into each other. This one being out, it means that this airbox should probably move forward. And as you can tell, it's just a rigid mount. So it's extended as far as it'll go. It's just not on there. And I just can't help thinking that there's just something we know this, but there's just something not quite right. The fact that both of the tires are cracked and are of old age, I do not want to check the fork seal condition because of situations like this. I just can't help saying, I don't think this bike is worth fixing. Yes, the foundation is good at 100 PSI on 2-quarter kicks. But golly, everything else, there's just so much more to do. And that's all I can say, my friend. If I were you, I would sell this bike off as is.